Well, hi there everybody. Welcome to sprueVerse, the scale model universe. Great to have you back with us. And this is one of those rare occasions where we get to be together on Thanksgiving. So I hope everybody is going to stay healthy and safe. Let's jump in. So this is my 24-inch Spindrift, the 3D printed Spindrift resin. Lots going on. I've been doing an awful lot. And I've been doing a little bit of work behind the scenes, which we'll give you a look at today. First, preparing the outside of this ship. As we know, this ship was printed in 3D with a very, very sort of tight weaved print, which creates all these lines, and that's how you obviously build up the various different pieces of the kit. In doing so, it created some heavy ridges and a rough sort of exterior that I didn't really care for. And I knew that unfortunately just a little bit of primer was not going to do the trick in terms of getting this to where I really wanted it. So I made a decision that I was going to do a very light Bondo over the surface, the entire surface, and I got some great results. Let's take a look at that right now. All of the seams are gone. If you can see, if you look underneath, you can see where the seams are. And now they're gone. A little bit of time, a little bit of putty, a little bit of patience, and a lot of filler. And I'm very, very happy with the way that turned out. It's going to be really nice. I was going to get 2 coats of the orange paint. So I've got my windows done. Front window done. I'll show you how that goes. That sits under there like that. And then what we'll do is now there's other things to do here. I've got to obviously putty this in, and there's a applique for the grids that go on both sides. So once it's all in, you won't see a lot of it, but that's a result. And of course, what I did here again, if you remember, is I actually made these windows a lot wider than they actually were, just so that we could get a lot more of the cockpit in. Because once this thing is sealed up, you sadly don't get to see a lot of your work, but a lot of fun. I've been working quite hard on the exterior, several coats of very, very light Bondo, which you can see in this particular shot here, where I've carefully tried to be as smooth as I possibly can. And of course, after that, you've got to go through various sandings. Now, I've been using, as I said, everything in the kitchen sink. I've been using sponge. I've been using wet sandpaper, which is really, really good. But you've got to be patient and don't force the paper down on the product. Lightly let the paper do the work, and if you can wet sand outside somewhere, you get a really nice result. It's messy, it takes a lot of time, but the results, as I said, are going to be terrific, and you'll really be pleased with what you've got. Now, the top of this ship is ready for its first coat of the traditional orange paint. And we'll be doing that we'll be looking at that in the next episode. But for this episode, I wanted to talk a bit about the prep of the exterior, some of the products that I use, my thoughts about them, and also get into a little bit of the electric. So without further ado, let's dive in. What we're looking at right now is obviously the belly of this ship. Now, for the top of the ship, I decided to go with just regular Bondo. Just regular Bondo, here it is. And now, I decided to go a different direction for the bottom. There is a different version of this, and it's called polyester glazing putty. Here it is. Here it is, and I'll show the can to the top here so you can see it, see the top of it. It's Evercoat polyester putty, and what I'll do is on fill cam here, I'll quickly show you a close-up of this because I know everybody will probably want to see the two. Why not? So here they are. You've got Evercoat on the left and obviously Bondo on the right. Now, The interesting thing about it is that I had a couple of observations that I want to share with you. The Bondo itself, I find to be a little easier to sand. It's softer. It does dry very solidly, but I don't know what it is, but I find it a little easier to carve, and I find it a little easier to sand. Now, the Evercoat is an absolute first-class product. It creates a solid, absolutely solid surface. However, its drying time was a little slower when we were applying it, but after it had dried, I really struggled with the sander. I used an orbital sander on this. Really took me, I would say, 3 or 4 different passes. And now, of course, I've gone to my traditional glazing and spot putty from Bondo, which I smear on very carefully, do a light sanding, let it dry, see where my high spots are, sand it again, let it dry, and you just keep going until you get a beautiful surface. Where I'm at with this is I've just got another light sanding to do, and I can see a couple of dimples in here that I want to fix, and we'll do that, but for the most part this will be ready to go. Couple of challenges ahead for me with this model, which we'll probably share in the next episode. Once you have prepped and primed your exterior, it's time to deal with the fact that you're putting an interior in this, which I am obviously doing. And once you have made some wiring decisions, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, you're going to have to then figure out how you're going to complete this kit. Do you install the interior, seal it up, then putty it? Do you try to put the rear on first, putty that, and then install and finish the rest? Do you put the front on, try to install it from the back, and then seal it? Haven't made any of those decisions yet. I'm really struggling with those, but I'll figure it out. And once I've made that decision, I'll share it with you. The interesting thing about it is then I've got to think about the base, because my wiring harness is probably best put through the base here. Now, am I going to display it off the ground like this so that you can see it on an angle perhaps? Or am I going to put it on the ground as if it has landed already? Haven't made a decision. I struggle with bases. I don't know if you do, but I do. I just struggle with them, and for a weird reason, I always end up sort of with sometimes with no base at all, and I've got several kits, I'm embarrassed to say, with their wire harness sticking out the back of the base, and I've not completed the base. The Galileo is a perfect example of that, because there's a specific base I'm waiting for and I don't have it yet. So again, these are a whole bunch of questions. Now, they're fun, I have to say. I mean, it's all part of the world, but this is going to be a very heavy model. So whatever I decide to do, it better be solid and it better look good, because I put so much effort into this. To do something half-baked would not be cool. So, lots to think about there, and we will most definitely continue to do that. Now, I've also been working on the wiring quite intensely. I have created the light box. So far, this is what I've done. I've created the light box for the rear, and I'll show you on the interior, because it's really quite fun. This is the Randy Cooper interior, and it's available on his website, and it's just a beautiful thing. I have to say, I've really had a lot of fun with this. Now, I did sort of showcase this in an earlier episode, and there are some amazing photos of Randy's finished kit on his website, so there's a lot of reference information for you. What I really enjoy about it is just you get lost in the mechanics of it, the details of it, and what you think you're going to do or not do. The box It's very simple. It's just made out of 2mm styrene, and I have it all lit up and ready to go, and I'll show you what that looks like right now. Okay, so that's the light box, and here are the intake engines left and right. Now what I have done is, and all of this wiring, by the way, I've created myself, but the kit, the actual kit, the basic kit itself comes from Voodoo Effects, Randy Newbert, first-class human being, and I just love his product. And so what I had to do was I had to create a sort of teardrop version of the intake grate, which is what I've done here, grill. And I've also created some diffusion for that. So in essence, this will sort of go like that, and I will show you a quick test of that right now. This is what that looks like. Now it doesn't always come out very well on camera. We get a little bit of distortion, but I promise you, in person, you're not seeing some of the things you see on camera, but you'll get the general idea. It's a beautiful pulsing glow. And what I've decided to do, because you do in Randy's board that he supplies with his kit, you get three effects. You get a very fast flicker for the rear engines, you get a slower fade for the intake, and you get a third one that you're supposed to do for the back wall that's even slower. Now I've decided I'm going to sync my intake engines with my wall, because I found the first effect just to be a little too slow for me. I like more of the pulsing look, but the great thing about this board is you have all of those choices to you. It's a very tiny board, and the great thing about that is that it should be able to fit quite snugly in the back of your kit. And since everything is really going to one sort of power source, one switch on and off, it shouldn't be too difficult to get a power cable through the center of this thing, or somewhere through the center of this thing, and out the bottom of it. I think if it's going to be on a pole, if it's going to be on a single pole, I don't know about weight distribution yet. I've got to think about all of that, because that would mean I've got to epoxy in that post, and this particular kit sits flush on the floor here, so I'm going to have to probably bolt it down somehow and put some really good epoxy in there, and then and see where we are. But I don't know yet, because it could be a tight fit, so lots to think about there. But that's a lot of fun. So I've got the rear wall in the passenger compartment taken care of with this box, and I've got the rear intake, the front I should say, intake engines all sorted with these two teardrop elements here that I've done. And the process of taking an LED bulb and attaching it to a resistor, because every one of these lights has to be attached to a resistor before it goes to the board, otherwise you're going to burn them out. We're running 9 volts through this thing. So it's a little time consuming, but I have to say, it is really, really, really fulfilling. I mean, there's something kind of zen about sitting at your electric bench, at least my bench where I do electric, which is behind me, and doing this. Anyway, I thought it might be fun to see me doing that. So anyway, take a look at this. There's a little bit of video that was shot earlier of me working on my LEDs. Take a look. So you can see here that the resistor is on the positive side of the LED. That's cool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my positive wire. I'm going to give myself a length. I'm going to wrap it around like this. touch it with some flux. Take my iron. I'm going to get a little bit of solder on the end there, just a little bit. Touch it, and it'll flow beautifully. That's all you do. And that is nicely together. So what I'll do now is I'll cut that and find a, oh, that's perfect. Find a insulation tube that goes over like such. We'll heat the shrink wrap with a little bit of, just a little bit of heat, not too much. Give it a squeeze, and that is insulated like such. Go to the negative side of the pole. Get my black wire or my negative wire. Come over here. Get it wrapped around like so. Now, I always have a little bit of trouble with my negative wire because my fingers are so big. But that's the genius of the flux, because it's going to flow very quickly and allow you to get a really good connection, and that's what you want to always make sure. Just touch it like that, and you are good to go. Again, I always try to make my wires as neat as possible, so I'll try to make these the same length. Give this a... Alright, let's test it. Make sure that we've got a good connection. Whoop. There it is. Nice and bright. 16 of these to go. 15 actually now. Great fun. Very therapeutic. I told you it was Zen. It's a lot of fun. And as I've said to you, there are plenty of tutorials out there for you to check out if you haven't done basic lighting. But I don't want to suggest that this is basic, but it's pretty basic. There's not a lot of complications here. The next fun thing I'm going to have to tackle is going to be the cockpit and the control panels. I've not tackled that yet. I do have the seats in the passenger compartment in for paint. I've showed you the cockpit seats already. The next thing will be to come up with a light box for the ceiling here, a light box for the entranceway, a compartment that separates the passenger compartment from the cockpit. I'm going to have to figure out those light boxes. Randy gives you he gives you transparencies to actually use on top here with some strip lighting. So I'm going to create a box for those. And then once all the wiring harness is set, and I know how everything is going to be wired up, then I will take to finishing this with paint and all the decals. And this will be a self-contained unit that then I'm hoping we can drop into the shell once we've decided how we're going to do that, because it still has to be sealed up, and I'm still going to have to finish putty those seams where we join this together. That's all going to have to be clamped and painted, and I've yet to decide whether or not I'm even going to put a base coat of orange on this before I do that. Because if you start to scratch that up, you can be in a world of hurt trying to get that finish to look perfect. So this kit is not without its challenges, but it has been a lot of fun, and I just know the end result is going to be terrific. So I'm going to continue on with the wiring of this kit. The next time I see you, which will be after Thanksgiving, I'm going to try and get an episode done. I am going to take a break for about 10 days. So there might not be twice a week videos twice a week, but I will try to check in with you on the road. And then when I come back, we'll really dive into this thing and get it finished. And by that time, hopefully I will have made some decisions about how I'm going to display it as well. Oh, and I just received word that the Agostini Spitfire is arriving any day now. So I think we're going to put that on the bench and dive into it. As well as I've got some updates on my DB5, and I'm going to be finishing my X-Wing as well, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks. I think I've got 1 or 2 packs left to go there, and then we'll see that in its finished state. So lots going on at sprueVerse, and I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me for this episode. Stay safe, as I always say. Be well. Hug your loved ones. Build something. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, guys and girls. Be well. Talk to you soon.